Impressions of her were that she was super nice,
Regular Chinese girl. I think seemed quiet to me.
kind of nondescript.
I think she was about your height, 5'2", 5'3".
And I'm sure that she's really successful wherever she is right now. And
Why are you sure of that?
because I guess I'm sure that she's successful now because she was successful before this happened. And I don't see any reason why one act, like one mistake, can change a person's core. That is being nice, being studious, being really personable.
So, wait a second. Even when Grace Lee is committing arson, she's still a nice, studious Asian girl? I guess I was hoping for a rebel. Someone who would turn my stereotype of Grace Lee on its head. But maybe that person just doesn't exist. My search brings me to Michigan, where I've heard of an 88-year-old woman living on the east side of Detroit.
I used to be embarrassed, I tried to put these on in private, and now it seems silly. These are the two things I say about myself all the time, and have said for the last number of years. Number one, that I live in Detroit, and number two, that I'm in my 80s, which I think sort of distinguishes me, because not many people are proud of living in Detroit, and not many people are proud of their age. My name Grace came from my father, who was taught by a missionary by the name of Grace, who was taught English, and therefore named me that. And of course, I also had my Chinese name, which is in our dialect, Gokping, meaning jade piece.
Well, we used to call her Grace X because she was such a revolutionary.
Every one of us who lives in this capitalist society has been damaged by this society, and to create a new society where it's not only struggle about against what exists, but also transform ourselves. And I became so active in the Black Power movement that FBI records of that time say that I was probably Afro-Chinese.
Grace Lee Boggs is a writer and activist who has devoted herself to social change, primarily in the Black community.
Are these boxes from last year?
Her life is a whirlwind of meetings, speaking engagements, and opportunities to mentor young people, which basically includes everybody under 80.
She's been there in my corner all my life.
I'm a terrible housekeeper, let me tell you that in advance. This is my study. And these are some of my favorite quotations. This is the one from Fanon that I'm always quoting. Each generation must have a relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. I finished Bryn Mawr in June 1940. A. Philip Randolph issued a call for a march on Washington to demand that blacks get jobs in the defense industries. And I saw the enormous change that took place in people. It was just amazing. They were ready to march, they were ready to go, they had hope for the first time. And that gave me an idea of what could happen if you had a movement. And it was at that point that I decided I was going to become a movement activist. In 1951, Detroit represented the insurgency of the black worker, the rank and file black worker. So I already had that sort of political orientation when I came here. I had met Jimmy, actually, and his reputation had preceded him because he was militant, he was articulate, he loved to write. We had a social, and I went to a social, and I met him, and I asked him if he would dance. And we used to do that all the time in the radical organizations. Women would ask the men to dance. And he said no, he wouldn't, that he hadn't come around the radical organizations to get himself a woman. So one night I invited him to dinner, and I through a lot of preparation for it. I made lamb chops, which are my favorite. He came late, and he said he didn't eat lamb. But we began talking, and eventually, I don't know why, he asked me to marry him.
At that dinner?
Yeah, that night. And I said yes. During the years that I was married to Jimmy, when I was very active in the Black movement, I never thought, here I am, a Chinese person in the Black movement. Whereas people from outside probably thought, yeah, that's kind of strange.
It is strange. I never expected to find a Chinese woman so strongly identified with African Americans. But the more time I spend with Grace, the less strange it is. She's so comfortable with everybody, not just the people who look or think like her. She's the first old person I've ever met who actively reaches out to young people. 12 years ago, when most people her age were enjoying their retirements, Grace was busy co-founding Detroit Summer, a youth movement focused on rebuilding the city.
Detroit represents the end of the industrial age, that you can see here so clearly what's happened with industrial development. As things got difficult, people just got up and moved. And those of us who were left here had to really make a commitment to make it better.
I feel like I'm like a part of something. It's like, you know, important. Well, I'm working here on the art park, and I've been doing like lots of grunt work, like digging holes and digging holes.
You want to show us the hole that you dug?
Oh, sure. Well, it's not just a hole. It's like, it's 2 holes. But yeah, and like what we're gonna do is like build like an entryway to the art park. I've never dug a hole before, but I started now, you know. It's like, I mean, you never learn how to do anything if you never do it, so I'm doing it.
Our whole concept of young people is basically that of they're parasites. You don't want them to become anything until they're old enough to fit into the economic machine. And so how these young people, from the time they enter kindergarten, become socially necessary and part of the society is our challenge. This is Bernadette Dickinson, a very old friend of mine, member of the board of directors of the Bard Center. This is Grace Lee, Jerry.
What does the name Grace Lee say to you?
The sense of oneself as a woman is something that you are much more aware of than I was. I didn't think of myself, you know, I didn't think of myself so much as Chinese. You keep asking me this. I didn't think of myself so much as Chinese American. I didn't think of myself so much as a woman because the Chinese American movement hadn't emerged and the women's movement hadn't emerged. So I didn't have that consciousness. I don't think of you so much in terms of your name as I think of you in terms of what you do.
I guess Grace is right, but it's hard to imagine a world where identity isn't everything. I mean, why am I even making a film about it? I wish I could get over my identity crisis, but it's easier said than done. Ask anybody on the street what they picture when they think of an Asian woman, and you'll get responses like these.
Quiet, reserved, petite.
Sensitive, very nice, petite, small, soft-spoken, gentle, petite, small, soft-spoken, but I say intelligent.
Gentle, soft-spoken, but I would say attractive. There'll be every case.
Quiet, gentle, nice. Aren't these just polite ways of saying passive or weak? I'm inspired by how Grace Lee Boggs is able to transcend these labels, but most of us aren't quite there yet. And she's almost 90. What does it take for the rest of us to get to where she is? I hear from a 14-year-old Grace Lee living in Northern California. Her suburb is best known as the home of Apple Computer, but its other striking characteristic is its population, almost 50% Asian. This Silicon Valley community is home to one of the most competitive school districts in the country.
Hi, my name is Grace Lee, and these are my friends, my lovely friends, and we're in Cupertino, California.
I thought she was like really quiet and shy and really smart and like those typical nerdy Asian study
Yeah,
freaks,
that's how I thought too.
those study freaks. And I got to know her, I was like, whoa.
What kind of person is Grace Lee?
Very creative. Yeah, that's a word.
Vivid imagination.
Can you give an example?
Okay. I don't know.
Well, she's really artistic, and
Yeah,
then
she's a
she
good
expresses herself in her drawings.
She makes
Yeah.
voodoo dolls.
These are voodoo dolls, and I bought this one at Chinatown, and I made this one. And I mostly made it because I think they're kind of cute. And also because it's a good way to take out your anger without actually hurting anyone. Well, my daily schedule is on a weekday, usually wake up, go to school, come back, do my homework, maybe watch a little TV. If I'm hungry, eat something, practice violin or piano, and then go on computer sometimes. And then sometimes I paint outside, and then eat dinner, and then do whatever I want, and then go to sleep. And then on this side is my Lord of the Rings shrine. I'm covering it with stuff I rip out from day-by-day calendars. And I like to keep the Gollum ones at eye level because he's my favorite character.
Why is Gollum your favorite character?
Because he can change himself so much. It's like two characters into one. And I think that's kind of how I am.
Like Gollum?
A little bit. Well, I'm more like Smeagol. I think I'm pretty good at art. Not that I'm trying to brag or anything, but people think I'm good at art too. So last year especially, I had a teacher that really liked to talk about my individuality. And well, he really encouraged some dark art, like drawing more graphic pictures and stuff. Like people hanging off walls or people bleeding to death. What attracted me to the dark art was, well, last year I was kind of not in a great mood all the time. And it was mostly because my dad put a lot of pressure on me. The atmosphere was really stifling. So just to get all the negative energy out, instead of like physical abuse, it's just a way to channel the unhappy self. So it just all came out, and then that helped me get through it. In art, you can really just do whatever you want and express your emotions. So if you're in a bad mood, then it really helps you like clear things out of your brain. So it prevents you from doing anything too drastic. Like I have friends who do cut themselves, and it really hurts me to watch them. And so it just helps me get away from even thinking about it. Okay, this is my mom, and her name is Margaret, and her Chinese name is Zumei.
What do you hope for your child, Grace Lee?
Not specific. I just want to be a healthy person and grateful for whatever she has.
On my signature for my email, I always put It Poos Grace Lee. Grace Lee because it's my nickname, and It Poos because in 7th grade my best friends and I always drew poo all over the place. And then they put it in their binders and they put it like on the margins of the test papers and stuff. So then it became our trademark, and then that's why we have it. And the stink rays.
So what is that coming from a human or?
I don't know, because I don't think humans actually poo in triangles.
Wow. Thank you.
Grace's story sounds so familiar. She's not the only Grace Lee I've met who strives to balance what she wants for herself with her parents' expectations. It's a dilemma that's common to many immigrant families. And I found that whether she's in her 80s or her teens, Grace Lee is nearly always the daughter of immigrants. Just a century ago, Grace Lee would have described a woman of British origin. Of 13 Grace Lees who came through Ellis Island, all were of European descent. There's even a novel published in 1855 about a Welsh woman whose name is Grace Lee. Even the word Grace has Western origins. Unlike Jennifer or Tiffany, it's a name that has meaning in our everyday language.
Beauty or charm of form.
An attractive quality.
A sense of what is right or proper.
A title of respect or reverence.
Mercy.
The unmerited love or favor of God towards man.
Okay, so that's a lot to live up to. So how did Grace Lee become such a popular name in Asian America? I know it's common for immigrants to give their children names that will help them assimilate, but why did they pick Grace?
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Hi, my name's Grace Lee, and we're standing in front of my church at Home of Christ in Cupertino, California. I was born into a Christian home. My parents were Christian, and when they named me, I think that's why they named me Grace. When I was little, they would call my name Grace, and then they would say, oh, say grace, as in, pray before you have your meal.
So this Grace Lee is a Grace Lee by marriage. She's a pastor's wife and is busy raising her daughter Faith. Of all the Grace Lees I've met, she's one of the closest in age to me, and we even share the same birthday.
Every time my name is said, that's what it means. It's unconditional love, God's grace for us, salvation, the church. I get reminded every day that that's been my destiny. Was blind.